Hey, Kate, thanks for joining us today as a way of getting started. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, Brian. I am a Minnesotan. I currently work at a large corporation. You can look me up on LinkedIn. And I have a 20-year-old daughter. I am
Wow.
married. Yes. And I was a nurse in my previous life.
I noticed that. Well, the first time I've had a nurse on that didn't go into medical sales.
Yeah. Well, there's a story behind that. I applied to get in for a DNP program at the University of Minnesota. I didn't have a 4.0. I tried 3 times. I had a 3.9. And then I met someone at Oracle, talked to them, and they wanted me to do an interview. And I started my first sales experience at Oracle back in 2014.
And did the nursing help in sales?
Actually, it did. It helped a little bit, a lot, actually,
Yeah.
substantially with empathy. I
Yeah.
am a big believer in empathy, building those relationships. I'm a big believer that the trust is foundation of all relationships, including, with my daughter, my husband, with customers, partners, managers. So being able to have that as a nurse, taking care of someone like they're your family member, that was something that I implemented with my sales, any kind of sales. And I don't even call it sales, it's more a relationship, right? Building the partnership, being customer centric. So instead of patient centric, I moved to customer centric.
And what was the motive to get into sales for you?
For me, it actually, well, I'm very competitive, believe it or not. You couldn't really be competitive in nursing.
Nursing. Let
Yeah,
me
I could
save
not.
them.
You couldn't be competitive with
Get out of the way,
nursing. Like,
doctor.
how fast can you get your patient in and get them out? No, no, couldn't do that. And so when I first started at Oracle a long time ago in 2014, I was very competitive. There was all these competitions internally with peers, and I was just adamant to always win. And then I was fascinated by technology. Healthcare was a little stagnant. There was always, ever-changing prescriptions, medications, stuff like that. But technology was changing, on-prem to cloud and just, AI and Internet of Things and just, I mean, it was just building and I got so excited and more infatuated with it. And so I just rode that lovely wave on and here I am.
Now, I got to believe also in nursing, you had to read people
Yes.
because people tell you what they want you to know. And because I
In
hate
sales, you mean?
healthcare, so I would say, I'm fine, I'm fine. You can put that needle and syringe away. I'm going to be okay.
Right. You can tell a lot about a person when you meet them. You knew it like as soon as, so I worked on a med surge floor. And so you could tell right away when you met this person and how they just like how they answered some of your questions as a nurse. Like, okay, they are going to be discharged in a week, or some of the responses are based off of, okay, they're not very motivated, woe is me. They have a negative mindset. They're going to be here for a little while. And that's usually, what happened is those patients that were like, I want to get out, I want to get with my family, I want to recover, they were out right away.
Yeah.
But those who are like, I don't have anyone at home, I'm not motivated to do anything. I don't know if it was more of a companionship with the nursing staff or their roommate, but you definitely were able to read people. And I mean, unfortunately with COVID, that stopped a little bit because of via Zoom. You can't really
Proximity.
read
Yeah.
someone's, hand gestures, body language, all of that. But being able to be in front of a customer FaceTime, I feel like is one of the most biggest influential parts about building a relationship and that trusting relationship.
And what was it like your first year in sales? Because it's completely different. People probably didn't treat you with kid gloves.
Correct. You're spot on, Brian. It was horrible.
It
It
was
was horrible.
horrible. Somebody
I think
says the
that's
truth. Yeah.
I'll be honest here. I'm very transparent. I think I got a lot of gray hair when I started that. I wasn't familiar. Like some of my peers came from other technology or software companies. And so trying to learn the language, I mean,
Yeah.
nursing language is so different than
Different than
technology
medical.
language. I even called some of my customers patients and I'm like, thank goodness they were, receptive around my background. But being able to just get that language and the terms. I mean, obviously, as you know, there's acronyms everywhere. We're
Yes.
at so many different software companies. So learning the acronyms. And so I had that mindset, just like with nursing, create flashcards,
Good. Yeah.
They didn't have podcasts when I started. So like watching YouTube videos, being on as many customer calls as possible to just learn that language so I can just, have that everyday environment and then just enthrall myself to be able to speak to them in the way that they're used to.
Yeah. And was management patient with you through this process? Or
Yes, they
yeah.
were. They were very patient. Um, and I mean, like I was very transparent too. I would preface like, hey, I know I'm new to technology software and I'm gonna fail. I know I'm gonna fail, but I promise you, I'm gonna be successful. Give me a chance. I'll be successful. I'll prove it to you. And eventually, hitting President's Club and being, as happy and successful as I am, it paid off. Just knowing that failure isn't the end all to everything. It's one of my mindsets and mantras I follow every day.
And how long did it take you to get your groove where you went from, being awkward, trying to write down each acronym, look it up, memorize it,
Yeah.
have the flashcards to the time where you made President's Club?
Ooh, almost a year.
A whole
Almost a year.
year? You
Well, I think for
slacker.
me, it was like 6 months comfortable, right? I know I'm being realistic here. It was about 6 months to get
Yeah.
that to be comfortable with the language and not having to look at the flashcards and the post-its up on your computer to tell you what each product is or what it does. So about 6 months. But then, you had greenfield accounts, right? So prospecting and making 100 dials a day and then trying to learn the customer's business, building that partnership, especially if they're enthralled with another software company where it took them like 5 years to implement it. Being able to have them move to a different partner and implement that is like, it's like
It's
running through
huge.
blood. Yeah,
Yeah.
so just being patient. And I mean, about a good year, almost 2 years.
And how about as far as the rejection? Because I got to admit, in nursing, people probably want to see you.
Yeah,
You're helping. You're you're kind of between.
sometimes if you don't have a big needle, then they're like, oh.
Yeah.
Rejection we got that a lot. I
I bet.
mean, initially where I started, it had a negative connotation to their name. They're known, for, being pushy. But also I feel like that's every organization that I've been to, and even friends that I've worked at other organizations or big software companies. And being able to, be a person. I think one thing that nursing taught me too is treat them like a human. I feel like sometimes, sales reps in general, even when I started out, is like, okay, do the upfront contract, then you do this. There's like a recipe to the conversation where I'm like, I can't do that. That's not me. I'm not going to fit a square peg or, square peg into a round hole. And so just treat them like a person. Like, hey, talk to me. What is your everyday role? What do you do? What's your, high level? What's your task? How can I help? Where do you
Well,
see the biggest deficiency is?
that's a big or a good analogy because I bet in medicine, the doctors were acting like salespeople. They were upfront
Yes.
contract, rigid, precise. They only have so much time. But the nurses are the ones that have to translate that to what a human.
Yes, absolutely. And then that empathy comes in because a lot of the bedside manner of those physicians were just very stoic, told the factual information, and they walked out, and you're left there picking up the pieces or like coming back to that humanity, that empathy,
Yes.
that passion or compassion, excuse me, of like, oh, I'm sorry about the news, or yay, you get to leave, just so many different emotions. And you had to be very agile on how to react to those emotions of the patients. And that's actually how I started the mirroring, like with sales, mirroring your customer, being able to mirror those reactions and being able to react how they're reacting. I think that's also brings you to that humanity aspect of sales, and building those partnerships and relationships. So
Right.
rejection, I
It was
learned a lot.
there. How
It's
did
there.
you how did
Yeah.
you process it? Because you've got another interesting element I noticed, yoga.
Yes, I'm a yoga teacher. I love how you did the research.
I
Of course
do.
you
Well,
did.
I'm sure that helps you as well.
It's a good balance, yes. And I mean, with yoga, I teach hot flow, a matter of fact, at a big organization in Minnesota. And actually, it's all in North America. And teaching yoga, you're in a front of a room with like 25 students waiting on you and telling you how, or telling them how to move. So the public speaking aspect of things is like a breeze. I'll be honest, every time I teach though, I'm super nervous, but I'm more nervous teaching a group of 25 yogis versus a room of 10 CIOs, just because they're sitting there waiting to, like,
Right.
okay, how do I move
What
next?
do
Or
I
how do I
do?
breathe? And you have to memorize for that entire hour, like the next movement, what they should feel, and then you kind of weave in a story. So I always weave in, I'm a big Andrew Huberman fan, the
Yep.
neuroscientist at Stanford University, and just talking about factual information, about breathing and optimal physical performance. And actually he had a podcast about failure. Sorry if I'm not supposed to talk about him, but we're
I
supposed to bring
know.
in lessons to our students. And I always apply it to work too. Sometimes in those stressful situations that, you have a customer, I just had one not too long ago, a partner, customer, like very stressed out about a situation and their tone is very stressed out. So being able to like step back, take a breath and visualize the whole picture of what's going on so you can figure out an executable plan going forward is something that yoga teaches you, to not be reactive, to process your thoughts and then find a go forward strategy.
And how long did it take before you really felt great at sales? You made club the first year? Is that
Yeah. I heard President Circle and Club, and then I left and went to another company, and uh, that one was a little different because we pioneered a whole new vertical. So there wasn't the trying to figure out the metrics of your on target earnings and all that stuff in Club is very difficult. But it, for me to be comfortable, I'm still not comfortable. I'm going to be
really?
completely honest. I'm still every day learning something new. There's always something new that happens within technology. I mean, like there's like the recession now coming up that people are concerned about. And so educating myself on that, um, you know, I guess I'm never comfortable. And I get worried that if I am comfortable, then I'm not going to learn, right?
That's
Because
good. Yeah.
I feel that once I'm comfortable, then something's wrong. Like, okay, then I'm too comfortable. I'm not learning. I'm not growing. And I feel like every day you need to be in that uncomfortable position. Otherwise, you're not living life. That's just my own morale.
But maybe comfortable was the wrong word. How about that
Sure.
the flow state where I'm sure in nursing you got it, right? You got the helper's high where
Yeah.
you
Yes. I love
right,
that.
right. You're
Yeah.
in there, you're helping people go through probably a very bad point in their life, right? That
Yes.
most want it over as fast as possible. They don't understand why it's taken so long. And you're there to communicate and get them their head straight so that they
Yes.
can understand what they're up against and what they should be doing when
Stay
they don't
positive.
want to do it.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep. So the flow of being that successful.
Right. But then you got to get into an enterprise sale where you're kind of a fish out of water.
Yeah.
You got to learn the product, the customer, the process, and
Budgeting, how to,
all of that.
yeah. I think a lot of it to be smooth, or I mean, again, going back to the big picture of things, I think that's one thing is like reps are so afraid of. It's like, oh, pricing. I can't talk to them about pricing. They're going to be afraid about that. But when you show them a big picture and that you're confident, I think being confident is a huge portion. As you know, you're very confident in all your podcasts and you just come off like, okay, I'm a little intimidated about this interview, but I'm excited. But I mean, it's key because it not only shows that you know what you're talking about, but it also shows, you know, okay, this is what you need to do from a consultative approach. This is what you need to do. This is what I've, other people in your situation, this is how they've done it. This is how they were successful. And I know it's nerve wracking, but just know I'm here the entire time, entirety of the relationship, and that we're into this together.
Yeah.
So if you have any kind of hesitations, talk to me because we'll work through it together and we'll go forward on what you need as an entirety of an organization.
And I'm sure you've seen how other salespeople sell, and you sit through other people's QBRs and
Yeah, that's
well,
the fun part. Being facetious. Yeah.
well, how do you kind of see yourself either different than other people?
I heard from, well, there's a couple people. I'm just going based off of what people have said about me. I'm fiery. I don't know. I kind of take that as a compliment. Um, and I'm also very charismatic, right? I talk with my hands. I'm the same way when I teach yoga. I am like that when I talk to customers, partners. Uh, and I think that's what just makes me an anomaly a little bit, because I mean, some of my peers are the same way, but I also think that I listen. That is one thing I know that, what separates the top people from the rest is they don't listen. People, when they have a first conversation with someone, whether it's about software or about yoga, they are thinking about what they know, what they want to talk about themselves or the organization they represent.
Yeah.
So being able to actually listen, I feel like that, not saying my peers don't do it. I feel like that's where what separates from the good from the not so good.
Well, certainly with salespeople, I think they feel that they have to know the answer. So
Yeah.
they confirmation bias just takes over.
Yes. And I feel like sometimes they don't want to be vulnerable and say,
Right.
I don't know the answer. Like, can I get back to you? Or if there's urgency around it, hey, what's the time frame? I have to go and pull these resources and it may not hit your time frame, but can we meet in the middle?
Yeah.
Like the
And I
give and
think
get.
that's where the magic happens is when you show vulnerability.
Yes, I agree. And you probably have seen it talking to other, reps or
Of
salespeople.
course. Yeah, because they don't think, oh, you know everything that this billion-dollar company has ever produced from day one, every customer, every use case.
Mhm.
But that doesn't create the conversation. What creates the conversation is, well, so why is that important to you?
Right, exactly. And then
Dig in.
sometimes, when you have those first conversations with the partners or customers is they already, you're a vendor, you're at a technology company, they have their stoic face on. And so sometimes being able to bring that wall down with them and just like, hey, where are you from? How many kids do you have? Like, let's have
Right.
a conversation, human to human. I'm a human, you're a human, that humanity part of it again. And also being vulnerable, like, oh, I don't know that answer. I'm gonna get back to you. Or even if you ask them a question and they're like, oh, I'm the CIO of this company, I should know this. Oh, no problem.
Yeah.
It's like also being judgment free. It's a judgment free zone. Be free to talk so that you can actually get down to their deficiencies within their organizations. Because some of them don't, they're just like, oh, it's another vendor. I don't want to talk to them about it. There's no reason.
And what was the hardest part of
Of the
getting
conversations,
good at enterprise sales?
the hardest part is probably getting rid of that facade of enterprise software sales. I know it sounds
Well,
contradictory,
it's
but
not because I tell people it's like if you act like a salesperson, you get treated like a
yes,
salesperson. And
yes.
and they don't know what that means. It's like you get commoditized. You are one of the 15 that we're talking to. You're no different.
Exactly. So how do you stand out? How do you stand out from the other 15?
Yeah.
So there's a saying when I first started is be rememberable, not agreeable. And I always try to do that, whether it's like, hi, I'm Kate the Great, or, just with like introducing myself on an airplane because they see what I'm wearing, or just the power of moments, right? I'm a big book person. So Chip and Dan Heath and creating those moments, whether it's like sending someone, a whole bunch of food on their birthday and they're like, who's this from? Oh, it's from Kate the Great, who I met on the airplane, but just I had no idea. What does she do? Oh, we need to talk to her about that. That kind of
Right.
stuff. Even though it's small, but it can catalyze into so many bigger things, like opportunities.
And how about as far as, getting the technical sale? I think a lot of reps get really good up until after the proposal gets put in.
Oh, like closing.
Well, right, because in an enterprise sale, the closing isn't, "Give me your credit card number and I'll write it up." That's not a close. The
No.
close, you have to, like, get a purchase order or maybe something
Red
contract
line.
signed, and
Yeah.
and you don't know who those and the customer doesn't know who those people are in the company sometimes.
Yeah. It's a difficult, well, yeah, you're right, because actually that happened to a customer recently. They didn't even know the process.
No, they
And
never
it
do.
can become difficult, especially if it's global, because then you have like all
Big
these
companies, yeah.
security, conundrums like GDPR, which are not applicable to, North America. And then you bring in Canada, and there's all these different things. They're like, oh, I thought I could just sign, an OD and then we're good to go. And it's like, wait a minute, no, there's all these steps. And being able to like walk them through those steps hand in hand with a legal person, mind you, it just it like gives you that assurance that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it may take a week, it may take a month, even took like 5 months one time, but it will happen. It'll close if
And
you're in agreement.
and how about the working inside of a big company? Because
Yeah.
I got to imagine, when you were a nurse, you kind of knew people. You knew the whole crew,
Hmm.
right?
You did. You
You don't know
did.
the whole crew at your company, right?
No, no. And as you saw on LinkedIn. So no, but being able to create those relationships and it I think is huge because I am not tech savvy. I can be very high level, but I have those resources and those counterparts who can get granular
Yeah.
with those specific functionalities within a module. And being able to leverage those relationships and being able to text them, call them, spur of the moment is huge. So I'm still building to this day, even though I've been here for a little while. I'm still building those relationships internally and externally. So everything that I apply externally, the building relationships, the trust, the consultative approach, the advocacy, I also do it internally as well. I'm a big believer that you need to have that, building the trust internally, the advocacy for someone, and, because there's a lot of people don't like to take ownership, believe it or not, when things go awry. And then also, being there and saying that I'm going to do something and following through again, externally, internally is huge because you never know. And then going back to the nursing point of it is treat those how you want to be treated, no matter what.
Yes.
I know my mom taught me that. It's just something that I took through my entire life. It took me a while to realize, yeah, that's true. But
Well, right,
right?
because we know how to do that externally, but
Yes.
internally, and I was bad at it. That was my weakness, is I thought, "Hey, I'm the one trying to get this big deal that pays for
Yes.
your salary. Please cooperate." Instead of like, "Hey, how's your day going?"
Yeah. Or like, talk to me or what's going on?
Yeah,
Okay. How
don't
can we fix
bulldoze
that
me.
together? Yeah, it took me a while. It took me a good probably 3 years to realize, like, oh, yeah, I don't want to burn those bridges.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And what skill, if you got really good at it, would take your game to the next level?
Really good at it is delegating. That's one
Yeah.
thing I need to work on is delegating. And I feel like not only like in my personal life, but also, I mean, I need that definitely, but also in my professional life as well. Delegating. There's so many great resources, especially where I'm at, because it's so big that I can utilize and leverage to delegate different tasks so I can focus on my end goal, which is generating that new revenue.
And are you comfortable having, like, say, a 30-minute conversation with a technical person about what you sell? Is that
Yeah. Well, you mean the technical person on the external side?
Yeah, just say you have say your SE doesn't show up or
Mhm.
flakes or got
Oh,
sick or
yeah. I love that. I love being uncomfortable. Put me in, coach, because I just, because I work so hard at studying and learning and retaining and being able to apply it to an actual conversation.
Yeah,
And then not knowing something, then, you remember it for the next conversation. I feel like it's okay to not know something. And the more I put myself in those uncomfortable situations, like even this, even I was like, oh man, this is going to be, whew, here we go. But which is I'm very grateful for talking with you, but being able to talk to someone on a technical level, I just think it'd be so much fun. Even if I fell flat on my face, which I'm okay with because then again, you have that ingrained in your head, oh, that happened. So next time I have this conversation, I can answer it this way or let me look into it. Again, going back to that, like I'm sorry, I don't know. Let me look into that.
yeah.
Being human.
And because I always saw that as one of the major challenges at a big matrix company was a lot of the salespeople couldn't hold much more than like a 5 or 10 minute high level
Yeah.
discussion. Doesn't have to be the technical presentation or the demo, but just like, why you need it, how it's different, uh, why it's better, what happens if you don't get it, that
Yes.
type of thing.
Oh yeah, I can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I just had one yesterday and I'm very confident about it.
And
It took me a while though. It took me a year to be confident with it.
it does.
Mhm.
But, all you have to do is get the flashcards, watch the YouTube presentations, write down what you don't get,
Yes.
ask your SE, have them
There's so
quiz
many
you.
resources, as you
And
know.
they love testing salespeople,
Yes, you know it.
right?
Giving
Roll
pitches
their eyes
and
at you. Oh God, here we go. They think
right?
they
They
know
do.
everything. Yeah.
I know. Well, yeah, unfortunately, there's that stigma around that. And I feel like that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to break it. I'm trying to break that stigma around salespeople and just, hey, I'm human just like you. I want you to be successful. That's my main goal. And if we can't take that facade of, being stoic or whatever you're trying to do, have that negotiation face on, like, then
Well,
we're not going to get anywhere.
where does it? Why be stoic?
I don't know.
It's not a contest of lack of emotion,
I feel like
right?
everyone in procurement is stoic.
Well, on their side, I
On
see
their
it.
side, yeah,
I get
definitely.
that part, but on the sales side, put a big smile on your face.
Yes.
Like, imagine you're meeting your best friend after 5 years.
Yes.
Just that smile alone breaks the ice.
I feel like we need that, especially post COVID, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays, it's so important. Or even when you meet them in person, some people you can tell that they don't want to be touched, but even like just touching their shoulder and be like, "Hi, how are you?" I had that happen to a procurement person at one of my partners, and he's like, "You know what? You are the only person who touched my shoulder and said, 'How are you?' and asked me during an RFP process." And he's like, that really meant a lot to me. And ultimately, he was one of the decision makers around, down selecting a vendor. And so just taking that moment to just, hi, how are you? Like, have that energy. Like, life is too short to be negative. Don't get me wrong. You can have your bad days,
Well,
but
because everybody knows it's all about people and relationships, but they don't know what that means.
right.
They don't know. It's like the person they want to talk with, not
Yes,
just have to. And how do you get out of the transactional mindset and that transformation that's going on?
absolutely. Yeah. Like, I feel like a lot of salespeople are like, okay, I have to fit into this
Pretend this
characterization of
character.
a
This,
sales rep and what it
yes.
is, like
Put on
via
a
on
sales
LinkedIn.
voice and
Yeah, like the voice,
the language.
the negotiation game of back and forth, and just the upfront contract, all this stuff that was just like ingrained like back in the 90s and stuff, right? And that worked. That worked like for a couple of years, right? But now it's
Works in a
totally different.
transaction,
Yeah.
but we're not it's much more than a transaction. We get what, 6, 9 month sales cycles in some cases.
Yeah, sometimes even 2 years,
Right. That's not a
depending on how big the
that's a
proposal
journey.
it is.
That's like going through college,
It's
right?
some marriages, I mean, jeez, right?
Now, how has yoga helped you in sales? Because I see a lot of these things that people do outside of work help them inside of work.
Yoga has helped me being able to, because, sales is stressful. It's very stressful, you're always on. Some people create those healthy boundaries. For me, when I initially started building the partnerships, I wanted to be like, hey, you can reach out anytime. So you never know when someone's going to reach out to you. And being able to take that time to step back, um, and have that alone time with yoga, or even if you go running, whatever you do to alleviate stress, it's so
Yes.
important. And I'm all about memory. And so when I was getting into this industry, I wanted to memorize as much as I can around it to be a better, to sharpen my knife. And so one of the things is I read about a neurologist or neuroscientist at NYU, and she said there's 3 things that are proven to help with your memory. And it also helps you as a person in the whole. And it's like having 15 minutes time to yourself, whether it's meditation or running or walking or whatever you do, just time for yourself, having the cup of coffee for 15 minutes, and then getting enough sleep. That's one thing. I mean, you
Huge.
have to have enough sleep to do our jobs, right? And then The other one is being able to like breathe, like step back and
Yes.
take breathing like seriously. That's one thing you can control, right? And that's one thing in yoga. It's all about breathing. That's all yoga. But it's all being able to like just breathe, because sometimes when you're in those really tough conversations, we hold our breath. But being able to,
Well,
you
that's what
know,
turns on our prefrontal cortex is the breath.
yes, yep, exactly. And
Because
so,
when we hold our breath, we're in survival mode.
yes, that
And
fight
when
or
we're in
flight.
survival mode, we're not thinking, we're reacting. It's a very
Yes, and that's
different.
exactly what yoga teaches, is not being
Yes.
reactive. Like you're in those poses that are you're uncomfortable and you can't move, but you just breathe. And so being able to apply that to my job, I think helps a lot, and vice versa.
And do you do any of this like right before, let's say you have a big presentation and it's in person, but nobody's looking?
I
Do you
did
do that?
actually had a big presentation this morning,
Yeah.
about an hour ago. And so I did. I had to like sat in, I had my little meditation area. And I actually, how I became my yoga teacher is I meditated for 30 minutes every day, just because I was in sales and I needed something proven that can help
Yeah.
with stress levels and actually be a better sales rep for myself and for my partners and customers. And so I do the 30 minutes, and then I always take my deep breaths before I talk, and just like know like it's not that serious. This isn't nursing. It's not life or death anymore,
It's just
right?
money.
Yeah, it's just money. It's not life or death.
And how does the competitiveness foster or surface in sales for you?
Oh boy. Actually there's many ways. So sometimes unfortunately there's still people who talk negatively about other corporations. And sometimes there's fallacies that are involved. So they'll mention something that, a corporation can't do. And you're like, wait a minute. Yes, we can. Or, cost wise, if you hear like a customer getting pushed on cost because of what them upgrading or moving to another platform within that software company that it's not your company. And you're like, wait a minute, like, let me help you. Like, we need to discuss that because that seems really high. And I get really, I guess, I'm very protective over my customers and my partners and also where I am, because I love where I am. I'm happy. And so I want to make sure I protect that image and my customers within that image, or not image, that organization. And then
Yeah.
also the customers that are partnering with that organization. And so I'm super competitive to make sure that they're taken care of. And again, it goes back to the nursing and making sure that they're taken care of, because I know that that other competitor is not taking care of them. And they may be cheaper,
Right.
but they're not getting taken care of, or it's not fitting their needs, or it's not going to fit their needs. So that's
Right.
where the competitiveness. It's not so many like 100 phone calls in 8 hours. It's more
Right. It can surface in many different ways,
absolutely.
but there's always got to be some drive. It's an emotion
It
in
is an
people.
emotion.
Yeah.
Just like when someone decides to go forward on a vendor of choice or anything, it is emotional.
It is emotional.
Mhm.
Cool. Hey, Kate, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
On LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Thank you.